to your point, he would probably have to either resign now or before the and Trump is inaugurated, or he would be gone pretty much when Trump's inaugurated day one. So they probably have an acting chair. I mean, I imagine it'd probably be someone who's like current commissioner. My mind goes to Mark Ueda, but I can see Hester Peirce too as well.
This episode is brought to you by Uphold, which is one of the top crypto platforms in the industry. I've been a user of Uphold since 2018. They make it easy to buy, sell, and trade crypto. They have 300 plus cryptocurrencies on their platform, which includes Bitcoin and all the top altcoins. And folks, they do not commingle. They do not lend out your funds. They are 100% reserved, and you can review their transparency report. And they have a lot of great features that make it easy to execute your trades. They also have a great new product called USD interest accounts, which allows you to park your dry powder or your crypto profits and earn up to 4.9% APY. Now, the 4.9% APY is only on balances over $1,000. Below 1,000, it's 2%. But what's great about this product, guys, is there's no lockups, there's no monthly fees, there's no subscriptions, and best of all, it is FDIC insured just like a bank. So if you'd like to learn more about Uphold, visit the link in the description. Welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and my guest today is Ron Hammond, who's Director of Government Relations at the Blockchain Association. Ron, great to see you.
Great to see you again, Tony. It's been a wild couple of hours, so I'm glad to dive into all of it.
What a night for crypto, Ron. Obviously, President Trump winning re-election or getting into office again, I should say. This confuses me because I know since Grover Cleveland, I think it was, that you have a president, in this type of position. But obviously, he's seen as the pro-crypto candidate. And then you also have a big wins in Congress, in the House and the Senate. So a lot of stuff to start off with. What are your first impressions about what happened last night?
First off, shocked it was decided so quickly, but very decisive too. So it seems like a lot of the drama that we were suspecting that would take up probably the first couple weeks of the Congress coming back next week, or even going into January when like new Congress is forming. If there were a lot of questions about the election certification and such, we could see a lot of drama unfold that would have derailed a lot of things. But the good thing is it was decisive. And Kamala has conceded within the past hour. So we know for sure we'll have a new admin and a new party taking control here. And also we have a Republican sweep, it looks like, which is, early on in this campaign cycle, some folks thought it was possible. Then it kind of subsided. And then all of a sudden it's back on the table and now reality. And that has a huge plethora of options for crypto, but legislation as a whole, because that is a pretty rare opportunity you get as a party. And you usually don't get it for more than 2 years. Usually there's a flipping, and I bet the Senate's in a flip probably 2026. So they have a very limited amount of time, and they seem poised to hit the ground running on the Trump administration and moving with Congress. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be busy.
Yeah. And Ron, look, the easy thing that everyone is seeing, or the big headline, is Trump, right? But I was blown away by the amount of pro-crypto candidates that won in the House and the Senate. The numbers from Stand with Crypto, I was looking at them late last night. It's amazing. It's pretty much a landslide.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the primaries were 33-2, I think is the figure I saw. I mean, almost all the races are called now. We're still waiting for some in California, but I mean, overall, like, they're winning a lot of these races and some big ones too. I mean, you mentioned the Sherrod Brown race. That's the biggest race. And I've known Moreno for years. Actually, I've worked with him a lot. When I was working for Warren Davidson from Ohio, I was actually connected through him in 2017. So I've known Moreno from the crypto industry side. And it's been really exciting to see him engage, because we also met with Sherrod Brown in 2017 to talk crypto legislation. He didn't care then. He hasn't cared since. And now we have a new fresh face here. So it's really exciting to see a OG or crypto person like getting into Congress, let alone the Senate, and taking out one of the biggest obstacles for crypto legislation in the past 6 years. And so that's huge. And I want to highlight here, that was a major risk. The industry as a whole decided to go after Sherrod Brown, the chair of Senate banking. He has won, 20 plus years of elections. And if they lost, or sorry, they made the wrong bet with Moreno, it could have been really painful for the crypto industry, but that bet paid off. That was a really big race. And that showed crypto's force, was that race right there. But we've seen it trickle down to so many other races that crypto got involved in on both Democrat and Republican side. So it's the vibes are pretty high. It's really, really good. And I mean, the New York Times ran an article today that crypto's the winner here. And that's pretty exciting to see, considering 2 years ago, we were at the bottom of the barrel after SBF and all the campaign cash that had to get recalled back because of the fraud.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people, well, I should say, I hope people recognize how big the victory for Bernie Moreno was because Sherrod Brown was the right-hand man of Elizabeth Warren and what many would call an enforcer in Operation Choke Point 2.0. So he was a major pillar that was going against the crypto industry. So that's such a huge victory there.
Huge. And like again, you have to remember the Senate and the Senate Banking Committee is going to be in charge of all the nominations. So if Sherrod Brown was still there, and let's say if it is the Trump administration, that is going to be a bottleneck for getting anyone approved, especially at the SEC and all these other agencies have been so pivotal for our industry, and in some cases, so detrimental to our industry. So seeing that now shift to Republican and Tim Scott, who is adamantly pro crypto, also is going to create a subcommittee on crypto, which is the first of its kind in the Senate. Again, that's where now we're going to see legislation formed for crypto in the Senate. It's always been usually in the House. Now the Senate's going to be the ability to take the lead here. And so we have a lot of great options here. The next step is going to be where is the personnel? Where is the Trump administration going to put a lot of priorities? Because that's going to be a major indicator of what direction they're going to go in the first 100 days. Because it seems like crypto is going to come up in the first 100 days for the administration, both in tax, but also in legislation. And a lot of the personnel are going to determine what that is and how it shakes out in these next 2 years.
Absolutely. And correct me if I'm wrong. I saw some folks mention that with the Republicans taking the Senate, Tim Scott would take over as lead versus Elizabeth Warren being the lead.
Correct. So right now the Republicans are the minority, but they just won the majority of the seats here. So come January, Tim Scott is assumed to be the chair of the Senate Banking Committee, and so that's a huge, huge momentum. You mentioned Elizabeth Warren. This is where it gets interesting. So with Sherrod Brown out, John Tester out, who was also anti-crypto, he called it bullshit 2 years ago, and guess what? He got bounced out by a pro-crypto candidate. So that's a big win. But then we have Jack Reed from Rhode Island. He won his race, or he's still in his seat, as so as Mark Warner from Virginia. And then after that, it's Elizabeth Warren. The two folks I mentioned earlier, they already have other committee seats, and they really can't chair two at the same time or even be ranking member. So Elizabeth Warren technically has the leadership and seniority to be the lead Democrat for Senate banking. And again, she's in the minority, so she has way less power. But that's where the crossroads of like the Democrat Party after this election is. There is a wide recognition among the Democrats that their anti-crypto approach was a really bad mistake that lumped a lot of them into the Warren camp, even though they didn't want to be in many cases. And so do you have her and a lot of the policies that seem to be voted against yesterday? Do you have her be the lead, or do you try to find someone else to kind of be that lead Democrat and be more, maybe techno optimist, you could say, or more pro crypto or more pro innovation, just more generally accepting, being more instead of calling out, one company after the other, would be a bank, crypto, fintech, what have you. So that's going to be a major decision for the Democrats is what direction do they want to go? Because if they put her up as Senate banking chair, it sends a message that largely the party looks to her for finance policy still. And as we've seen, it doesn't resonate with the American people.
Yeah, I mean, Ron, I'm seeing this as an all-time epic failure. Talk about a bad move going against a neutral technology. And I feel a lot of the Democrats, like you mentioned, got bamboozled. They got thrown into the mix. They may not have been true believers, but Warren is at the head of this ship and they're just like tagging along. But she took it to another level along with Gensler, and boy, are they paying for it big time.
And let's not forget too, like Mark Cuban, Ro Khanna, there are a lot of Democrats in the industry as well as within Congress saying, hey guys, wake up. Like this is a major issue. There's a voting block here. We have made pivotal mistakes being tied, via Warren or via other surrogates. We need course correct here. And they did a lot of private and public conversations with the Harris campaign. We did see them nudge a little bit towards crypto, but nowhere near the extent of the Republican Party or Trump to their detriment. And I think that really cost them. And it cost them a Senate seat in Ohio and several other races. And so I think, the Democrats are going to have to learn to kind of see where they go next. A lot of folks do point to the Elon as an example of kind of worked on technology. Democrats have strayed away. But again, these are all more macro decisions. And I think that'll trickle down to eventually crypto, where the Silicon Valley folks, I think that was one moment in DC, especially that resonated, is that when Ben Horowitz and Andreessen really came out and said, "Hey, we're supporting Trump," that did send a lot of shockwaves through DC because the more and more ripple effects of folks saying in the VC community and tech community that they're actually anti-Democrats after their engagement in one way or the other the past couple of years was pretty telling. So, and the money came with it. So I'll keep an eye on that and see where the Democrats go because that's going to be a major decision of where they go as a party next 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add context, Ben Horowitz and Mark Andreessen and so forth, those guys, they came out and said they voted Democrat in the past. And the way, I don't know what happened, who was behind, maybe Elizabeth won, but what they did to Elon, with electric cars and not inviting him to certain things, the positioning they took, and against crypto, they dropped the ball big time. And man, I can't even imagine how they come back from this. Maybe time heals some wounds, right? People forget, but they really dropped the ball here, and then have all of Silicon Valley turn against you and billionaires like Bill Ackman going on TVs and Peter Thiel and all these guys. I was blown away that they took the position they did, but I understand why they did it.
Exactly. Again, Republicans have made plenty of mistakes here too. They've also crossed several lines on other sides, but at least in the very specific case for crypto, we saw the Trump admin really court individual kind of niche sectors, whatever their policy issue is. And for crypto, he said everything we needed to hear, and then some. And so that was really exciting to kind of see that. And just the Harris folks did not give the industry that. And I think as a someone more on the inside, I was really excited to see the industry's reaction to Kamala saying, she wants to protect consumers in crypto, following up with saying, well, what does that mean? And I think 2 years ago, that would have been different. I think we would have been all crazy, and kind of the lobbyists too would say, that's great. We're moving the needle. We're making some progress here. But Trump stole the show here. And that was a major flaw on their end when they let him run with this issue because there was $200 million in campaign donations there. And again, the Democrats got a lot of that too, on the congressional side. And I think that's it's going to be tough for the Democrats to kind of decide where they go from here and see, hey, do we listen to the younger folks of the party because we're losing the younger vote? They lost the young vote to Trump, which is crazy to think about. And so what happens next, it could be anyone's guess. But the last thing I'll say too, it's just because it's Trump does not mean it's smooth sailing by any means. We have a lot of policy issues that are going to come to a head. And again, we also have new players, and the amount of folks in TradFi getting involved. I've been meeting with behind the scenes who've been saying, "Hey, the election's like the signal," and we've already seen a slew of stories of folks reaching out to the crypto industry from TradFi to get more involved. That's gonna be a dynamic to watch both on the lobbying side and the market side too. So stay tuned. There's gonna be a lot of fights to come. It's just gonna look a little different than it did the past 2 years.
Oh, for sure. So let's talk about Gensler. We know Trump made the promise he would fire Gensler on the first day. Technically, that is not something that he can do or any president can do, but I heard he can demote him to becoming a commissioner. However, there seems to be the unspoken rule of the incumbents, within the SEC as a chair would resign, right? They would, Jay Clayton did that.
To your point, he would probably have to either resign now or before the and Trump is inaugurated, or he would be gone pretty much when Trump's inaugurated day one. So they probably have an acting chair. I mean, I imagine it'd probably be someone who's like current commissioner. My mind goes to Mark Ueda, but I can see Hester Peirce too as well, being in that kind of temporary role. And again, you have to remember they'll be in a 2-2 split there, two Republicans, two Democrats, likely. So nothing's going to probably get done too consequential in that kind of holding pattern period until someone's confirmed by the Senate, and that's going to be the big marker there. And there've been a couple names thrown out for who's the SEC chair. Again, you also have to look at the other agencies like Treasury, OCC, CFTC, and stuff like that. So, but the good thing about Trump, at least for this go around, is that he does have it seems like now going to be a hefty Republican majority. And so, one or two votes tanking his nominations like they did over 4 years ago, he's not going to run into that situation, it seems like, as much. So, but it remains to be seen. Trump could also change his mind and do something a little more controversial at the last second. But it seems from all the names we're hearing that they've been preparing for this for quite some time. So I think they're going to hit the ground running, and it's going to go pretty dang fast, especially with a Republican Congress.
Oh, sure. Is it possible for Hester Peirce to aside from the temporary chair role, become the permanent chair, and then some additional commissioners are thrown in the mix, or it's not possible because she's already a commissioner and she can't be promoted to that. I don't know how this all works.
No, you can be promoted. She would still have to go through the same nomination process and such, and so and you had to fill in someone else's spot. So almost in a sense, it's almost double duty where you have to replace, go through the nomination for herself and then go through replace it for someone else to take her commissioner slot. So it's in the realm of possible again, but from every public statement we've seen from her, she seems to be indicating like she doesn't really want to do that. Again, she also has been there for quite some time. So maybe she says, my time here is done, and I'm going to be going somewhere else. And beekeeping, I guess, there's her activity she
Yeah.
likes to reference. So we'll see what happens for that front. But overall, at least, especially on the SEC side, from what names I'm hearing, it seems to be pretty positive. But we'll just have to see exactly where they land on those folks there, and if they make it through the nomination process. But all indications, though, it seems to be they will likely make it through. And that's where the hard work begins. That's where we're going to have, the personnel have to work with Congress and work with the agencies to get things done and to get the Trump admin goals and the policy priorities in crypto across the finish line. And again, there is a lot here, and that's going to be, it's going to be tough for crypto to make sure it breaks through the noise to be those top tier issues here.
Do you think Gensler, and this is speculating, it's a hard question, but do you think Gensler might be there's a saying, there's nothing more dangerous than a wounded animal, that Gensler might go ham, drop a ton of lawsuits before he runs out the door.
It is very well in the likely realm of possible. We've seen political pressure work with him on some fronts. So like the ETH ETF, for example, where the veto for SAB 121 and the ETH ETF came at the same time, and everyone thought the ETF wasn't going to get approved. And it seems to be, again, not full confirmation, but it seems to be they gave the industry a bone by voting against SAB 121 on the veto side. But they did approve the ETF that no one really saw coming. And again, political pressure seemed to be the key there. So we have seen it work sometimes, but we've seen enforcement actions days before the election. Like, was that really a smart move? We've seen also some pretty heavy-handed and pretty peculiar timed SEC enforcement actions or Wells notices, like when Coinbase got one an hour before they were testifying in front of a House Agriculture Committee about making a market structure bill that the SEC was it hated publicly and privately was trying to kill lobbying side. So, I think we've seen some pretty dirty tactics from this SEC. So it's not shocking in the next 2 months that something similar could happen. But a lot is going to change when there's a new regime. Now, again, we got to get someone confirmed from the Trump administration pretty quickly to get a lot of that stuff off the books. But again, a lot more questions about the cases in itself and how far they'll go or they'll stop completely. There's a lot of stuff that's still a question mark. We should know more hopefully soon, though.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my hope is that sometime this month, a la Jay Clayton, we get a letter of resignation that he's planning to get out of there, and then he just goes on vacation, right? Take that holiday break, Gary.
Let's hope so. I think it'd be nice. I think overall the upside is it'll be nice to see what other Democrats come out of the woodwork and maybe more publicly say they were never a fan of Gary Gensler. I know there's been a lot more folks privately who've been saying that, but maybe they'll have a little more cover now. They can say it publicly. But it's nice to see that his reign's over. But again, let's not forget the first crypto major enforcement action in this space was, in Ripple and XRP, and
Yeah.
that was the Trump administration that started that. So again, we are not by any means out of the wood yet. And personnel is going to be a really next big thing to watch because as pro crypto Trump is, a lot of the staff are going to be leading this, and that's when the dynamics are really going to play out.
Mm. Okay, so let's talk about a solution, a macro solution that could help fix a lot of this, and that is legislation. There's talks, we saw Chuck Schumer, Patrick McHenry, and folks saying they want to try to get something through the lame duck session by the end of this year. Given the election results, do you think that's possible, or it's too crazy right now?
It's tough because if you're a Republican administration or a Republican right now, besides Patrick McHenry is retiring, you're looking at, saying whatever deal we're getting right now, we know we can make a better deal in 6 months because we're going to have the whole deck to ourselves on the Republican side, and we're going to have no pushback from folks like Lael Brainerd, for example, who's been really pushing the state versus federal pathway or saying that banks can only issue stable coins. So you have these like dynamics that the administration currently has been really holding firm to for the past 2 years. That's why the stablecoin bill hasn't moved forward. So there still has no finalized deal from every source we're talking to so far. If they're able to get over that hurdle, it's going to have to come from the folding on the Democrat side, likely because they're not in the position of power to really make those negotiations here. So my hope is that we can move forward with the bipartisan work we have now. But I'm very confident that if the stablecoin bill does fall off, French Hill, who's one of the men running for House Financial Services chair, it's him and three others, but they're all pro crypto. But he in particular, he's one to see as one of the front runners. He said that he wants to put stablecoins and market structure to the president's desk in the first 6 months. Now that's a tall order for market structure, but I mean, it is very much in the realm of possible. So I can for sure see a stablecoin bill done by sometime, this time next year. I think we'll have something on the books in some way, shape, or form. But to your point, though, a lot of this is going to have to come through legislation, not just like an executive order or a snap of the finger or the SEC just writes a rule. There's a lot of issues that crypto has that requires a change of law, and that takes Congress, and that unfortunately takes time. But we have a lot of political power,
Yeah.
and we're riding pretty high and mighty after these wins in these elections on both sides of the aisle. So a lot can happen here, but we got to be smart about how we deploy resources, but also get the best thing for the industry.
Mm. Ron, final question here. I know it's just the day after. We got to let the dust settle. We got to let people digest this. But are you anticipating that people who are neutral or weren't paying attention to crypto are gonna look at this election and the results and the spending that was done from this industry and gonna start calling up the blockchain association? We need to talk.
I would surely hope so. I mean, look, we're all in this together. I've been here since being a Hill staffer in 2016, 2017, watching crypto from when it was just like one or two lobbyists and a bunch of, nut jobs coming to Capitol Hill trying to lobby who didn't know anything about politics to now we're the biggest force in politics, which is pretty crazy to see. So a lot of good things can happen here, but there's also a lot of directions that can go off the rails. And so we got to make sure this stays bipartisan. We got to make sure we get the right folks in the right positions. We got to make sure we focus on the right issues because there's a lot of folks who will say, "Hey, we just need a strategic reserve and we're done." That's like the only thing we need for crypto. Or hey, we just need NFT clarity and that's it. It's a whole slew of issues, and so we got to make sure we get the whole slew of deck addressed as much as we can. And yeah, let's get some good policy here. We got remember, the United States is catching up. Like we're not starting at the same line as everyone else. We have a long way to go. So let's see if we can move that forward. And let's all remember again, at the end of the day, we are all in this together. So it's going to start. You're going to have a lot of fights probably coming up soon where we'll have some parts of the crypto industry versus the other part, and it's like, hey guys, guess what? This is the time where crypto is all in one boat. So that's what we do at BA, and that's what we, other trades do the same thing. So we just want to make sure we put the best people forward. So looking forward to Tony, and I'll probably see you in DC more as time goes on.
Oh, absolutely. I think as we get into 2025, it's going to be very interesting. And I would love to be down there with you and the folks at the Blockchain Association and, celebrate a bit, but also continue to educate, right? And get people to understand this technology better.
Exactly. The one thing I will say, Tony, is I've had SEC commissioners, I've had Hill staff, I've had members of Congress say that they listen to your podcast. So it's really exciting is that like this is the medium that a lot of folks do their information in DC. So keep up the great work. This is good to see. And again, stay tuned. It's going to get busy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ron.